Hey guys, it's Francis Check with Video Realm Media, and today we are going to be showing you our new 3D model pack, Terrascape, which is now available. Before I tell you anything else, let's roll the trailer. So before we set out to make a new 3D model pack, we asked ourselves, what is there a lack of for Element 3D, or for any 3D software for that matter? And we came to the conclusion that after looking online and trying to search for different things, there was a lack of landscapes and different terrains and that sort of thing, especially ones that looked good and were detailed. And sure, there were a few out there, but it was super expensive and it really wasn't worth the money. So we decided, why don't we just make a bunch of landscape assets and terrain assets and put it into a 3D model pack. It's exactly what we did with Terrascape. So let's jump into Element 3D and show you all the amazing assets and terrains that come with Terrascape. Alright, so we've opened up Element 3D. If we go over here, we can see the Terrascape folder is here, and this is where it will show up whenever you install it. If we expand this down, you can see that we have Rocks, Terrascape, and Terrascape Reduced. Now I'll go over the Rocks and Terrascape Reduced in just a second, but let's just check out Terrascape for right now. So if we click on this, you can see that we have these really nice thumbnails showing each landscape. So we have things like alien landscape, canyons, the desert mountain, even dunes. So if you want to recreate those Star Wars scenes with the Millennium Falcon, you're covered. We have Ireland Hills, the Emerald Mountain, even the surface of the moon, which is awesome. I've already found a few uses for that. We have a lot of snowy mountains, and we even have a volcano in here. So there's 12 different terrain mountains that you can use, and they're really highly detailed. Each one comes with 8K textures. That's right, full 8K textures. So if we go up here to the Terrascape Reduced, basically what this is the same assets, but we've run them through a smart reducer. And basically what this means is that it reduces the polys to a point where you really can't tell the difference when you're looking at them. So say if we load up the same mountain, maybe we'll do mountain 3, and we'll load up both of these. All right, our two models have loaded up, and you may see this weird haze, and that's just due to the environment map being set to basic 2K. So I'm gonna load a environment map from the Sky Maps from Video Copilot. So we can load that in, that gets a lot better. If you don't have the Sky Maps, I definitely recommend getting it. But if you can't afford it, I definitely just go outside, just take photos of the sky, basically. You can use them as background plates. Maybe not for an environment photo, but it definitely helps. If you want to create your own environment photos really quick, I don't really suggest this all the time, but you can download this app. It's called Google Street View, and you can take 360 photos, and it's pretty cool, but the resolution isn't the best. So if you have an actual camera, there's stitching software. You can make these yourself, but this is definitely a very quick and very nice alternative. So let's go ahead and move these over. I'm going to compare these two. So move this one over. I'll move this one over. So without knowing, like, even if we zoom in here, you can't really tell which one is the reduced one and which one is the high poly model. So we can even move the lighting around. They look identical. You just can't tell. So if we actually reset the materials, then you might be able to see a little bit more of which one has the more detail in the terrain. But when it's really evident is when we turn on the wireframe. So we have our high poly model, which is on this side, and you can see this is a pretty dense mesh. It's very high quality and it looks great. If we go over to this side, the model that looked exactly the same, you can see basically what the Smart Reducer does is where there's a very flat surface where it doesn't really need too many polys or vertices. It just really reduces it in those areas where you can't really notice, but it keeps the detail on like edges and things like that. So it really, really helps to speed up the process. If we go over here, we can really see the poly count change. So as you can see, these look identical really from a distance, even if you get closer with the texture still on them. If we go back, so we have our two models load up again. I'm gonna go ahead and just shut off the reduced model for now. And I'm going to reset the transform by clicking on the model, right clicking on transform and just hitting reset. And that's just gonna center it back where it was to begin with. So let's go ahead and use this model to do a few tests with, just so I can show you some tips and tricks. So we have our sky mirrored 8. So let's remember that because we'll be using this image texture later. And let's just go ahead and hit OK. Okay, so our model is loaded up. And let's go ahead and go up to Layer, New, and Camera. And we're gonna make this a 35 millimeter, and we'll just hit OK. And we'll just tap C on our keyboard, and we can kind of move the camera around to somewhere where we may like. So maybe we'll zoom this in just a little bit. We're just gonna kind of look for an interesting angle here, which isn't very hard. So this looks pretty good. So let's move on to our lighting. So let's go over to Layer, New, and Light. And I'm going to use a point light. I'm gonna set the intensity to something pretty high. We can adjust this later. And I'll set the diffusion maybe to something like 200. Okay, 200. And so we'll hit OK. And now we can see our light in the scene. We can kind of just move this around, see where it looks best. So we definitely want it off in the distance a little bit. Maybe move it a little this way. Maybe we'll move it up a little bit. So we'll say like right about here. And then we can go into our Element 3D settings and go to Render Settings. And let's go ahead and go to Shadows, change this to Ray Trace Shadows, and then just hit Enable. So once that loads up, you'll be able to actually move around the lighting and you can see the shadows being cast. And from here, we can really do some fine tuning on the position of the light to make sure that it's where we want it. So let's see, we can move it down maybe even a little bit more up. You want to see a little bit down here. And if you're noticing that it's really noisy, that's okay. Basically what we can do is go into our Element 3D settings and go into our shadow, Ray Trace Shadow Samples. And we can turn this to something usually around 5 is okay. You can turn it up higher. It does start to slow down your computer quite a bit, but you could also just get away with using none of this. You could just go to your point light and shut off the diffusion. I've just found that using diffused lighting, even if it's slight, just helps to sell the landscape. But even if we move this around, I mean, this still looks pretty cool. So I'm gonna leave the diffusion on for mine. So let's switch this back to 200. And I'm just gonna move this around a little bit more. I'm getting pretty close to where I think it would work. Let's just say like right here. So the next thing that we'll do is add in some fog. So if you've ever seen like landscapes or mountains, you've always seen this sort of blue haze over it. And that's just due to either pollution or the atmosphere. I mean, who really knows what that stuff is? I don't know. I just kind of make this stuff up as I go. And so we can go into our fog settings into Element and move this up. And this may be a bit intense at first, but that's okay. We're gonna just get a very foggy kind of look here. And then if we go to our fog start distance and if we push that forward, you can kind of see how that's adjusting that for us. But it's really narrow for us right now, so we're going to increase the range from 3,000 to 6,000. And we can try adjusting this a little bit more. We want it to be pretty vast. So let's go ahead and turn our fog opacity down a little bit. So that looks pretty good. And now let's go ahead and add in our sky background. So if we go into Element, this is a really quick way to find the texture you've chosen for your environment photo. If you go into Environment and just click on Sky Mirrored 8 right here, then we have access to all of these. So we can just copy this path, hit OK, and then just go into File Explorer and paste that path. So we have all of our images right here, and we're going to use Sky Mirrored 8. So we'll just drag that down here into our timeline. So now that's loaded in. We'll need to drag it below everything. And we're just gonna go to toggle switches and modes, turn on 3D. And the one thing that we'll have to do is just tap AA on our keyboard and accept lights. We're gonna turn that to off. There we go. And if we hit W on our keyboard and just hover over something, you can see how this changes from X, Z, Y. If we hover over these and click and drag, you can see how we can actually move this around. And then we can just kind of push this back in Z space, push it back here, and grab the edge and scale it up. Let's see here. Just need to kind of get this set where we think it looks right. Also, something that we can do to help blend the background a little bit is we can use a curves adjustment and just place that on our background image. And we can just boost these shadows up just a little bit. We don't want to do it too much. We're going to turn this down a little bit. Okay, so that looks pretty good. And we can hit OK. If we move our camera around, we should be able to see what this is looking like so far. It's looking pretty good. We can even add a slight camera movement. So let's go into our camera settings, transform, and we'll keyframe our point of interest, position, and our orientation. Let's go forward to the 6-second mark, and let's just move this forward. And let's go back to our original. And we can move this forward. Basically, just want to find a really interesting angle that we can start from. So this looks pretty good right here. Maybe you can even have it start, even just go a little bit lower. So we have this play. You can see this. And something I always like to do to add a little bit more realism is if you alt-click on point of interest, and we type in the expression wiggle parentheses 2, 1 end parentheses. And now if we play this back, you can see how we have this slight camera shake. It looks really good. And something else that we can do to add a little bit more depth is use one of those reduced models I was showing you, and we can add it in the background. So if we go into our scene setup, we can actually turn on the Snowy Mountain 3 reduced. If we just kind of move this out here, maybe rotate it a little bit, just tweak the rotation, just move it around just a little bit, just to get it right where the camera really can't see the edge. So this looks pretty good. We're having a nice parallax. And if we hit OK, so now if we play this, you can see how that extra mountain in the background is really adding some depth to the scene. And that haze is really helping. You may notice that we're still having a little bit more of that haze in here. And a sure way to get rid of that is to rotate your environment. So if we rotate our environment here, we can kind of see what's happening with this. And we really just have to find the right axis. So we may want to position this more on this side since our light source, which is our sun, is coming from over here. And we're just going to tweak this. We want that side to be as dark as possible. So maybe right there. And we might even be able to turn up our light, our point light a little bit more. The next thing that we can work on is our color correction. So if we back out a little bit and we go into layer, new adjustment layer, and we just get a curves adjustment. We can use a curves adjustment here and just tweak a few of these settings. So I finished adding some color correction. I used 2 curves adjustment and lumetri color. And really what I use for my renders is looks from Magic Bullet, but you can definitely pull off some really nice color correction right inside of After Effects without any plugins. So if we kind of take a look here before and after, it's not excellent, but it works. And so if we go ahead and give this a play. All right, so this is looking really good. Let's go ahead and jump back into Element 3D and I'll show you the other assets that we have. So something that also comes with Terrascape that will be updated in the future for more assets is the rocks folder. And we also have the high poly and the reduced models. So we have 3 in each folder. So we have the Rock 1 Desert, Rock 1 Green, and the Rock 1 Snow. So if we load all 3 of these up in the scene, so if we zoom in here, you can really see how detailed these textures are. Everything in Terrascape is 8K, no matter what, even these smaller assets. So you can really, really get close on these. You can really see the detail, and they just look awesome. We have the desert version right here of the same rock. This Rock 1 is really great to have somebody sort of walking up, as you can see in the trailer. This is the rock that we used. If we move the lighting around, It's just really, really neat. The textures are very detailed, so you can actually see the cracks. And if you wanted more of a bump map, we give that option, so we can really tone this up and we can really see the detail in there. We even have our specular highlights, glossy maps. We also have our ice rock, which even have these little icy spots. There's a lot of possibilities. They look really great. And even for this one, say like the Snow Rock 1, you could add subsurface scattering and get like a blue tinge to say if you wanted it to be like this massive iceberg. So if we shut these other ones off, let's see if we could try that. So we turn this to subsurface scattering, move it up, scroll down to subsurface scattering. It will turn our scattering down just a little bit. Turn this to like a blue color. Turn our absorption range down. And now you can kind of see that we're getting this really neat sort of translucent look on the rock. Like it's this big chunk of ice. So there's a lot of possibilities with Terrascape. We have a large variety of different 3D models. If you'd like to check it out, go to our website. We have different license types from single user, business, academic, and stock footage creator. So definitely go check out those options. If you scroll down, you can really see we have some really neat example renders in here. It was just a blast to be able to make this pack and actually have it finally done. So we're really excited to have this out for you guys. All right, guys, that was the short overview of our new 3D pack, Terrascape. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down in the comment section below. And also check out our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages. We post regularly there. We post our renders. And if you use the hashtag VideoRailMedia, or if you get Terrascape and use the hashtag Terrascape3D, you may have a chance to actually have your work featured on our pages. So definitely, if you make some awesome renders, be sure to tag us in those. Again, guys, my name is Francis Check with VideoRailMedia, and we'll see you on the other side of the mountain.